All of this event took place when I was just 25 years old back in 2013. I'm currently 36 years old in the year 2023. My name is Michelle. This story is not really much a scary one, but it was unnerving on so much levels that I can't even imagine how this could affect anyone else. But I will make a brief backstory here. Around 2013, I had been a single for quite some time, and my last relationship was just during my few years of college. But after I finished college, I didn't want any sort of particular relationship. But one day, my best friend Eve decided to ask me if I want to go to the local bar to just hang out, just two of us. And since I was quite down at the time and I didn't have any particular plans, so I was like, yeah, why not? So we went to the bar and we ordered some drinks and just having a good girl night. But when I was sitting at the bar, this quite handsome guy sat next to me and he started asking me what my day had been, and we started talking. And he was good looking, and he told me his name was Ben. He was 26 years old, and he started to ask me lots of questions like about my day had been. I asked him the same things. And after a while, we actually have a very decent conversation at the bar. He bought me some few drinks, and still, we had a good time. But by the end of the night, me and Eve decided we should go home since we were a little bit tipsy. But before that, Ben actually asked for my number, and I didn't hesitate to give it to him. And he gave me he also gave his number to me. So for the next few days, we actually started texting and even talked on the phone a couple of times. But after almost 2 weeks, he actually was brave enough to ask me if I want to go out with him. And since I hadn't even been in any serious relationship or been dating for some time, I was like, why not? Let's see if this could actually lead to something. So we actually met at a small restaurant in town, and we actually started talking more and more, and just to learn we have actually a lot of things in common. And even after that particular date, Eve had asked me what I thought about Ben so far, and I told her the truth. He is quite good looking, he is single, and we had a lot of things in common. So she was like, well, go for it. If this is good to be true, maybe this is something that you can actually go for. So I agreed with her, and I actually did tell him this to Ben, and he was just like shocked and it's like, well, same here. And after about, but we didn't make it official after maybe 3 months of dating. And we actually had a great time. I mean, we went often to the movies or to his place or to my place to spend time. And our relationship only grew stronger for each single time. Even in our early relationship, Ben actually ran into sort of my other friends and even met my family. And they thought that he was quite charming, quite good looking, quite smart. He was actually very polite. Even my mom told me that he is a dream guy. I should not be stupid enough to let this particular guy go away. And I was like, yeah, it's not like that happening right now. But our relationship was actually quite stable. And it happened that he actually did leave town for a few times, in a month. Mostly because he was doing some work out of state. And he did mention that during our first date, and so if I didn't hear from him for about a week or two, it is because of his work. So at least he was honest about it. So we decided to just continue our dating, even though that sometimes I didn't see as much as often. which it's sad that I couldn't do that, but at least I was happy to be able to see him and when he come back home. But after almost a year, he asked me if I want to move in with him. I was like, wow, as just a whole new step. But the problem is, either my or his apartment was even big enough for two people, and so he suggested that we would buy a house in a town, like a small house big enough for us and maybe for a guest or so. I was like, why not? I mean, I have a well-paid job and he had the same thing. So we bought this house together. And it happened that we bought this small house in the suburbs and it was actually a very decent, safe neighborhood. The neighbors were very friendly, there were a lot of family, there was just even a lot of young couples, young families, and it even happened that when Ben talked to some of the neighbors, he joked that maybe one day they will also start a young family themselves. And I was like, maybe one day. And that day actually did happen only a few months later. Because 2 months later, when Ben came back home from his business work, the business trip, I told him the news. I was 2 months pregnant and I was nervous how he would take it. That we would just have moved into our house for just 2 months ago, and we have been barely just been dating for just 1 year. But I was really quite ecstatic. He actually felt happy about it, and honestly, I didn't even thought about it. After all, he did mention that he has always wanted to be a child, had to be a father. He was the only child, and he had no parents since they both had passed away some years earlier. And I was like, that's terrible. But I know that they will be happy to see that he has have a child of his own. But he then suggested, since we were going to have a baby, he asked if I want to get married. That was quite surprising, because he did propose me to that only a few days later after I told him the big news. He actually proposed to me. I was like, yes. I didn't even hesitate to actually say yes to that. And when we told my family and our friends, they were all excited. But since we decided to have just a small wedding with some close friends and family, sadly, since he didn't have any family alive, so it was something my family would understand. And we later learned that we were expecting a baby girl, and we were so excited. And in fact, Ben was out there for me the whole time during my pregnancy, and when I had my mood swings, when I had my doctor appointments, and even baby shower, everyone can see how he was very much engaged in this engagement of being a father, how he's very much dedicated to be a parent. He was quite excited. Every time when we went out for baby shopping for clothes and toys and all kinds of things, we had even have painted the nursery in the guest room and all kinds. And then the day came when our daughter was born. We had named her Mandy. Mandy was really a very excited child. Even as a baby, she could sometimes sleep almost all day, but it happens at night when she starts screaming or crying. At times, sometimes we take turns to comfort her back to sleep. But it happens that even though when Manny was born, that Ben left town for about a week or two because of his business trip. And of course, I luckily have my friends and family there to help me, to support when I needed help. Of course, Ben always called me almost every single day, or maybe once or twice a day when he was away, to just make sure that I was okay. And I'm just happy with that. Things actually started looking much better for us. I mean, we were married now, have a daughter on have her own first or our first child. What else can I even dream about? Then, just barely 2 years later, I actually found out something on Ben's phone. When Ben was in at the store at the moment just buying some things that we needed for the dinner, he had forgot his phone at home. And I saw a text message on his phone from someone named Sarah. And I wasn't as much as a jealous type. After all, he had a lot of female friends back home and at work. And I was like, it's fine, yes, yourself. And I actually read the message like, I can't wait to see you again soon. And when I actually asked him about it during dinner, he actually told me that it was an old friend from back home, his childhood friend, someone who had been there for him throughout the entire childhood. And I can understand that since Eve is my childhood best friend. I have known her since we were like in elementary school. And so I can actually relate on that one. So I didn't press much charge on that, and but things started to acting a little bit strange because sometimes when he was either asleep and or he was away for the day for a few hours when he was at the store or even took Mandy out for a walk so I could take a nap, he had forgot sometimes his phone at home. And sometimes this particular Sarah, actually called or texted him a few times like say, we had a good time last time when you were here. I wish we can just hang out more some time again. And I was like, his friend is just actually very much, very, how to say, very much involved in his life. And I felt not much any jealousy because of that, because I completely understand since he has Sarah as his childhood friend, and I had Eve. And she has always been there for me when I was heartbroken when my past boyfriends broke up with me and all that. But around the 2 year mark or after that Mandy was born, we actually discovered that I was pregnant again. And this time when we learned we were expecting a boy, Ben was so beyond the words of happiness. He couldn't wait to be a parent soon again. But things were eventually strange enough because one day when I was home with Mandy when Ben was out for only a few hours, I saw I forgot his phone again. And at this time it was a message from Sarah. I was like, okay, his old friend. But this message was a complete different. Because the preface for the past messages that she has sent to Ben has always been almost like friends messages. But this one was more like romantic content. There was like heart emojis and kissing faces, and she said that I can't wait to have you on my arms and that so I can give you this biggest kiss ever. And I didn't even know if I even should brought this up to Ben, but I shouldn't, or at least should I thought myself, but I didn't. But the only one person I did bring it up to was Eve. Eve thought maybe this, since she knows about Sarah, at least for what I've been telling her, for what Ben told me. And she told me that maybe there's something else that's involved. What if that they actually had been dating or something? Like, what if Ben is keeping a secret so deep from me? What if he's romantically involved with Sarah? That would pretty much ruined my whole life. After all, we have been married now for a few years. We have a daughter and another baby on the way. So why would he be much doing that otherwise? Because it's clearly that he is very much involved both in Mandy's life and mine. And he was much ever there every single time when I was with my appointments and all that. And he's doing the same thing now. And right now, currently the time was my 5 months pregnant with our baby boy, and I was like, I decided I needed some answers. And even if I would try to ask Ben about this, he would deny or saying that he was probably like she was just joking or they just messing around, like say joking with each other. And that's some friends would do. But having like this type of messages, it's not like a friend or a best friend would do. So I didn't even know what to believe. So the time when Ben went on the way to his business trip in a few days, I decided and Eve decided we would should go to this particular state, to this job to see what was actually happening. Because both me and her started being thinking, what if he has been cheating on me? So luckily though, I had asked my parents if they could be looking after Mandy for a few days since me and Eve were going out for town for a few days. They didn't ask for any particular reason, so we did, and we just waited the day after he left. We went to this particular town just a day after Ben had left. We went to this hotel and we waited a few hours before going to this particular job. We went to this business, turned out to be this some sort of construction work. And we went there and we asked the foreman, or at least the manager of this place. But he had told us, well, when he asked to see Ben, because we need to like to see him, he was curious, he was confused, like, Ben? Yes. Then I told him his full name, and he said, we don't have anyone by that name here. Then he asked to see a photo of the supposed employee. So I showed him a picture of Ben with me, and he said, that man doesn't even work here. I don't even know him. So we thanked him for that, and we left. Both me and Eve was pretty much confused. And I was a little bit mad, or angry at the words. He had lied to me that he worked at this particular place. So why would he have been lying to me for the past few years that he has been working there when it turned out he didn't? So Eve could see I was furious, but she tried to calm me down, and she suggested we go back to the hotel and call him. And I was like, okay. And we called him and we asked him, I asked him how things that the work was going. And he said, yeah, work's fine, just, business always, I just on my break. And I asked him, what was the name of the company that the construction work you worked again? He was like curious to know why. I was like, practically hormones make me forget things. And it's something he actually bought it, and he told me, and it matched. The same company that me and Eve had just been to. But we never, and I said, well, I can't wait to see you soon. Yeah. And after we hanged up, Eve suggested we try to reach out to Sarah. And I actually did manage to copy her phone number on mine. And when I called her, yes, can I ask you who you are? I explained her name. My name was Michelle, and she asked how would I got her number, and I told her that I did got her number from Ben, and she was like, "Oh, you must be one of his friends." I was like, "Friends?" And I asked her if she had ever heard of me. And she said yes, that he said that he had told her that I was one of his old friends from a different town that he used to live in. I was stunned. He had told her I was a friend. Well, I asked her how she knew Ben. And here is the bombshell. She told me Ben was her husband. I was dumbfounded and I couldn't even say any other word. And then Eve took my phone and asked Sarah if it's possible for us to meet in person because there are some things that we'd like to talk to her about. And she said yes. So we decided to meet at the local Starbucks. We went there, and sure enough, we waited for maybe 10 minutes, and she showed up. I was, well, curious to know more, and we actually gave each other a hug, and she congratulated me to my pregnancy and said, "Thanks, it's my, it's my second." And she said, "Yeah, I know that it's like I have my first." And then as we sat down, I started telling her about Ben, how me and he actually met. We met at a bar, how we started hanging out, we started talking, and just get to know each other. That was complete different matter from what he had told her. Turned out I was supposed to be an old friend of his, from some at least a few years earlier. Well, technically we had known each other for only a few years, but when I told her that we were actually living together and then she's like roommates. No, I actually then I showed her my finger of the ring. She first didn't even know exactly what to believe, but I told her Ben is my husband. We have been married for a few years now, and we have a daughter together and our second baby on the way. She was really dumbfounded. First, she accused me from lying, but I did show her pictures of me, Ben, and Mandy, and even when our wedding picture, and she started crying. She couldn't believe it. She turned out that Ben and Sarah had been married for at least 2 more years longer than I had known him. They have a daughter at the same age as me, as Mandy, and turned out they actually known each other for years since they went to the same high school, and they actually got married only a few years after that. I was like, what? How he had been lying to me, and when I told her about this construction work that he told me about, and she's like, no, he actually works at the Walmart. How is that even possible? And she asked me more things about me and Ben, and I asked her the same thing, and we made the conclusion. Ben had been cheating on both with her and me, and technically had been married with two different women with just two different names, well, last names, because apparently they had one different last name compared to mine, because when I did marry him, he had a different last name. She was mad, not at me, because I was completely innocent, because I wasn't even aware that he was actually married at the time when I met him. So we suggested that we could talk to her, or at least talk to him directly, that we all confront him at the park nearby. She actually was okay with this idea, and she actually was for it, because she needed some answers why he did this. So we went to the park that was just across the street, and me and Eve were standing behind behind a building when Sarah was sitting on the bench, and after from maybe 15 minutes or so, Ben actually showed up, and he sat down and they have a small conversation before suddenly his face from happiness to shocked, almost terrified at the same time, when me and Eve step around from the corner of the building, and he's like, uh-oh. I did ask Ben how to explain this. I was actually mad at him, and he could see it. And even Sarah asked him how he could ever have the nerve to be cheating on her with me, even though that she knows I was complete innocent. I was not even known about this ever. So he was like, he was trying to make excuses that I was coming on him and I seduced him. But I was like, me seducing you, Ben, it's a lie. You had lied to me the whole time. How dare you? And making some excuses. If I had known you'd be married, I would not have even been dating you at all. I mean, I would have broken up with you for a long time ago. He was very angry, or at least sad about it. But he tried to make an excuse and tried to say, uh, oh, we can make it work, can't we? And I was like, Ben, after I get home, I will file. I will actually have you reported to the police because this is not allowed. You know that. He tried and begged not to be doing it, but I had my mind set on that. And in fact, Eve said, "You should, if expecting you will have a divorce from Sarah soon." And Sarah's like, "Yep, definitely will do that." And Ben then saw me and looked at her and begged once again to give him a second chance. A second chance, he said. You have been doing this for years with her, and now she's expecting your second baby? How dare you? I mean, this is really crazy of you. I would never even give you a second chance. If you would have happened just one or two twice, or if you had done with her two times, I would have definitely would have given you a second chance. But a number of years, and that you got her pregnant twice. No, there is no way for you to have a second chance. So please, leave the house now, because you are not allowed to get back home. And your daughter, she is not want to be seeing you ever again. And so me, Eve, and Sarah actually left the park while Ben sat there crying of his learning about his big freaking mistake. At the parking lot, Sarah asked for forgiveness, but I told her, you don't have to apologize because you had nothing wrong to do with this time because you was not even aware. It's like you told me. So we gave each other a hug, and sure enough, only when I got home, I actually went to police and told them about this, and I actually went to court. And even during the time, Ben tried to beg me not to. He even tried to tell me that he would leave he would leave Sarah so that we could be a family officially. But I told him there is no way for that. And I even told him my love for him, my feelings, were all gone. And I would never want to spend time with anyone who is a cheater and a liar, despite how charming, how good looking he acted towards me. And he tried to even reach out to my parents about this, but it was too late. I had already told them on the way back. I had actually called my mom, crying, and told her about this. Both me and my dad, my mom and my dad was furious how he could done this. But they never blamed me or Sarah because both of us was complete victims about this guy. And as my mom said to me, if he had done this with me, what is going to say that he could have done it with another woman during the same time? That was a scary thought that I was happy at least that didn't happen. To be making all this, the court process not being the story long and boring, we actually managed to get my marriage with Ben dissolved, and he was divorced from Sarah around the same time, and he got a restraining order against him, and he even had the same thing from Sarah. He had to spend at least a few years in jail for this because of this supposed that. And during this time, I actually had my son, which I named Mike. And Sarah and I actually have become our good friends. In fact, since my son Mike and Mandy are half siblings to Ben's first daughter, and so we made sure so that both Mandy and Mike could spend some time with their older half sister. So it's um it's a long process to be handling. And during when Ben was in jail, he tried to reach out to me and Sarah by letters, even despite it was against the restraining order, so he violated them both. But sometimes after Mike was born, I actually met a guy by name Leo. Leo was, well, he was like Ben, good looking, handsome, smart, but I was very hesitating that he could have been the same type of guy as Ben were. But he was not at all. He was told about Ben's past, his double life of being married supposed with two different women, me and Sarah. He laughed about it. It's like, how stupid can anyone be? It would only been eventually that secret would become out anyways, he said. And I laughed and said, yeah. So we started dating after a while. And I can say this, me and Leo actually got married in 2018. And even though even Mike and Mandy calls him dad, well, I told them that he is not their biological father, but he loves them as their own. He actually adopted them both. And I can tell I have 3 kids. 2 with my supposed first husband, which I would not even considering as officially since it was not even legal, Ben, and a daughter with Leo. I was quite happy for this. I mean, considering what I went through, it's not a scary moment, but I was upheld, weirded out. I was like, this is completely weird for me. I know that many people have been going through this type of, well, this type of relationship before. I was like, why can anyone ever have this nerve to do this? Even when Ben came out of jail sometimes later on, my restraining order against him was still much effect, and he tried to reach out to me when I told him that I could report him for breaking this violation of his restraining order, or I could let it pass this time to and only as one order that he stay away from me and that he has no right to see his children anymore, and he did stay away. That was the last time Ben ever tried to reach out to me or Sarah. Sarah actually moved to the same town when I was living in, so we can stay a little more closer. I considering her as my friend, but also as like a sister. So Ben, please, I am glad that you stay away from me and Sarah, and please, just continue to do that, because neither of us would ever want to see you again. Thank you.